One of the biggest mistakes I ever made in SEO was listening too much to online gurus and course creators and simply not taking action because I was listening to their pitch that basically they had the special method and you mustn't do the wrong method. And therefore, for fear of potentially getting the wrong method, I simply held back on some really key fundamentals. In this case, I want to share with you an example of link building, where for a long time I was listening to, first of all, the sort of white hat crowd saying, you must listen to Google, you shouldn't build links are going to get you penalized. If you build the wrong links, it's all going to go wrong. And then when it all came down to it, and I did actually start testing out some link building strategies, it worked really, really well. And it was really surprising because having had all this propaganda from free online resources, I was basically under the impression that if I tried to do link building, it wasn't going to work because I didn't have the ability to get the true powerful links that they were talking about. In reality, it all comes down to some simple fundamentals, but they're not going to tell you that because they're trying to pitch their service. So much of the SEO discourse and publicly available knowledge all comes from people who are actually selling something, whether it's a course, a service, and there's nothing wrong with that, but of course you've got to try and stand out in the market. Therefore, all the link sellers will always tell you that their links are best, you shouldn't do this method, shouldn't do that method. Now, of course, some of that is true, and there are definitely links out there you don't want to build, and they will damage your website. But in the grand scheme of things, the price of inaction is much greater than the cost of action. If I did build the wrong links, then there's always solutions to that, like disavow, even if it did come down to it. But in reality, the chances of that happening were much lower than I thought. I had a massively heightened risk profile on the basis that I listened to so much propaganda, but when I actually stopped listening to that and was at a point where I was actually going out and meeting more high-level SEOs, then I was getting more of the inside story, that actually there's a lot more freedom there, and it was a lot less likely to actually blow up than you expected. Now, I give a lot of advanced tactics away for free on my YouTube channel, but I can't give you the real gold because if I did, then it simply wouldn't work anymore. If I just spread this out across YouTube, everyone sees it, it gets really competitive, and also Google might actually start shutting down some of those tactics. However, I am very happy to share these secrets within my private free email newsletter. So to make sure you don't miss out on any more gems like this, I don't repeat these, they are only one-offs in the email list, simply because I want them to keep working and to preserve them, so they are one-off exclusives to subscribers. So to make sure you don't miss out again, what I need you to do is go to seojesus.com. So you can simply Google SEO Jesus, go to the .com, and then there should be a big button there for my Ranking Revelations newsletter. And then when I do have new real gold to share, you will be notified. It's much easier to send an email out than do a whole YouTube video like this. And like I say, I can have that extra level of openness and vulnerability that I can't quite share publicly on YouTube. Plus, if you are interested in seriously scaling your rankings with a guaranteed done-for-you service, then feel free to simply respond to that confirmation email, and then we can set up a call, we can discuss your requirements further. Just please make sure to include your budget, goals, and your website so I can actually take a look. So let me give you a real-life example of this. This is a website I sold early in 2022, and it was a standard affiliate content site. Now, I did a basic level of link building, so I did a very cheap, dodgy press release, and I found a good expired domain that's from a very similar website and redirected that website to mine in order to inherit those links. So it's got a DR of 7. I think at the time, at its peak, it was a DR of about 12. So really very small. Now, through on-page content quality and topical relevance, I was dominating some really good searches. So I only had 100 or so articles, most of which I actually wrote myself, but they were all optimized with Surfer. They were all really deep, informative. They had the products at the top and then the buying guide underneath, lots of internal linking, and a really good template actually for conversion rate optimization. So it was doing really, really well. At its peak, it was doing about $1,500 per month. So when I came to sell it, I was able to, they were already pitching me around a 40x multiplier, thanks to Empire Flippers. However, they said that was basically the maximum they were going to take, and they could always take a lower offer. And I was able to negotiate that up to 43x. So that meant I was going to get a really decent payout for this site. But when I look back now, knowing what I do now, because once I sold that website, I actually reinvested that income in upskilling my knowledge. So I immediately started traveling, getting out to the biggest conferences out there to meet some of the biggest people in the industry and get talking to them. And I don't just mean their talks, I mean actually hang out with them at the bar and get the genuine insights, the stuff they don't talk about online. Now, you can't change the past. That was a really valuable thing for me then. I had to sell that website to get the money, to get the knowledge I have now. But in the meantime, there's also that sense of big regret in that if I knew what I knew now, I could have totally transformed this website. And my biggest hesitation was link building. I listened to all the propaganda and thought, I can't build links, or if I do, then it's going to be really expensive and I'm probably going to get it wrong. But now I look back and think what I sold that website for and what income it was making, it was already really optimized on page. So if you're ranking really well without link building, then that's a really good sign. If you start building links, your traffic is going to massively take off. So knowing what I do now, it's really tempting to actually go back to that website. So at the time, I sold it it's the end of 2021, basically. And actually, for the new buyer, it took off. There was some sort of update that happened, and that buyer hopefully made a decent return on their investment there. But since then, it's actually died off really, really quickly. And I think that's due to the competition on the basis that the new buyer also didn't build links. So the important thing about links is, yes, there's this penalty risk if you do it wrong, but actually you've also got this major risk of competition that if you simply rank and then hope that your content simply sticks around, yes, that's true to a certain extent, but you leave yourself very vulnerable to competition. So if you're already ranking and making money, it's very important that you actually start reinvesting that into growing your link profile, because as we can see from more and more search results these days, even though Google is now saying links are not a top 10 ranking factor, look at any search result and you'll typically see really big high DR sites dominating it. And the people who are doing really well in SEO right now tend to be those who started a long time ago when links were easier and cheaper to get. They've invested heavily in it, built up a big domain rating, 50, 60 plus, and now they're quite comfortable because they've developed that moat. It's very difficult to actually overtake them. So this really was one of the biggest mistakes I've made in SEO. When you think I got a 43x multiplier for that traffic, I reckon I could have easily doubled or tripled that traffic, in which case, if you think about that graph in terms of the valuation of when I sold it versus had I built some links, grown that traffic, grown that revenue, and then massively scaled that traffic, most of my clients, they'll often see 10, 20x returns in traffic from doing this link building process, then that site could have been extremely valuable. So I sold it for about $40,000, $50,000, something like that. I reckon I could have got a good mid six figures for that site had I not listened to the standard advice, which is links are bad, you shouldn't build them, or if you do build them, make sure you use this guy's service. A lot of gurus will overcomplicate these things in order to establish their own authority. In reality, 90% of SEO is just content and links. And if you do those fundamentals, you're going to succeed.